I'm going to introduce you to the Academy by using a little analogy, which will help you to understand if this is the right path for you. All your life you've been used to living inside what I call low frequency, which we could imagine is a dark room that keeps you from seeing what's around you. You've always been used to living in the dark, a total darkness that doesn't allow you to recognize the features of this room, the colors, the decors, the furnishings or doors. You can't see anything. But in a certain sense, you almost feel reassured by not seeing, because you've been used to that your whole life. Therefore, you feel safe and somehow you like it. Living cooped up in that dark room is everything you've known and what you've always done. Thus, going out and discovering something else doesn't get to you. Within you, very deep inside, you know well that that dark room is keeping you from living your real life because you feel stuck and muffled in a reality too narrow for you. But the routine, every day the same, without anything happening that shakes your life, makes you feel secure. Then, at some point while you're sitting, you're touching the floor completely in the dark, you find a matchstick, which you probably mistake for one of those toys or pastimes with which you have fun with to distract yourself in that room. You play with the stick and spend a bit of time with it, as long as one day, instinctively and almost without knowing how, you rub it and it catches fire. A big light gets turned on, then it fades, but it's like a burst of adrenaline in your life. Suddenly, you realize there's something more than the usual dark. There's light. This matchstick could symbolize meditation. But the matchstick lasts a little, so you look at it for a while, not understanding well how, because the room is totally dark and you're holding in your hand a stick that triggers a strange reaction, emits light which you're not used to. And this excites you, but meanwhile it messes you up, almost as if you were afraid of it. The blinding light, although small, derived from the flame of that matchstick, makes you confused because it's something entirely new for you, and as soon as it turns off, you almost remain bewildered, staring off into space. You try to figure out why, you try to understand how this could happen, you look for a logic explanation until you prefer thinking that you completely imagined it. Everything's dark around here, it has always been, there's nothing different, you think, trying to remember the sensation you felt while you were watching that little flame. Nobody has ever talked to me about light. That means light doesn't exist. If there was, the whole world would have known. You keep on thinking in your mind in an attempt to explain what you've experienced. So, for some time, you decide to return to live your life in the dark, forgetting what happened with that matchstick. You go back to your routine, in your comfort zone, in which you spend your time pretending to do something while moving slowly in the dark for fear of hurting yourself. Many times you chose to remain seated, staying very still for a long time, fearing that moving you might step on something or hit the wall and hurt yourself because of the dark. So you chose to stay still from the fear of getting hurt because your sight that prevents you from seeing in the dark, rather than recognizing that the real problem, the real obstacle that keeps you from going on is just the darkness, not your sight. By chance, one day, while you crawl your hands in the ground to look for something, you found something else, another matchstick. You know what it is once again. It's what enlightens, what emits a huge bright light in the darkness. You know that if you rubbed it on the ground, it would light up and would allow you to feel that out-of-routine sensation again, a strange excitement that almost scares you, but within yourself you desire it because you feel that those few minutes make you feel an emotion that would seem quite a rebirth. You grab it, you rub it, and there it is, the light that enlightens your face. Your eyes light up with it, and despite the initial fear, you decide to look at it again, to observe it for much longer. In the early times, you focus uniquely on the wellness you feel watching that light. Therefore, from time to time you go and search for new matchstick to light them up and watch their light, as long as they turn off and you go back in the total darkness that keeps you from seeing the room. The search of matchstick is comparable to the search of that space during the day in which you can give yourself the opportunity to practice. The entire day is spent among commitments, work, thousands of thoughts that make you live into unconsciousness, thus in the dark, but once in a while you seek a space for you in which you can dedicate yourself to your daily meditation. The quest for matchsticks now becomes a routine. You don't want to give it up because you feel it makes you feel good. Therefore, you spend your life in the dark, but occasionally you touch around with your hands to try to find a matchstick to use. But you don't always find it. In fact, there are days in which you can't find time to meditate. Each person leaves their paths differently. Thus, there is who already stopped before, weirded out by the strong light of the first matchstick, There is instead who will get tired of looking for matchstick because they consider lighting them up too exhausting, and who instead has always held matchstick in their hand but never know how to use them because they always use them as simple sticks without even trying to light them up. Still, others realize almost immediately the fortune they had finding that matchstick, but despite this, they light it up and watch its light but without going further. They do nothing but staying still, staring at the light, waiting for it to consume and then shut down. There are some instead that, after a more or less long period of observation and wellness, felt thanks to the light of the little matchstick, will begin to reflect on how much using the light of that matchstick to find others would be useful and smart, in order to labor less while looking for them in the room, because the illumination would allow to see better where the others are. That's where the real spiritual path is born from. From the moment you are not stopping and looking at the beauty of the light anymore, but you decide to use the energy to reach bigger goals. Thinking of doing is not the same as doing it. Thus, there are days in which you lose your will, days when you prefer searching tomorrow, days in which, even if you wanted to, you can't find matchsticks around you. That is, you can't find free time to meditate, therefore some time goes by. But insistently, you are able to put your plan into action, and as soon as you find another matchstick to light on, instead of waiting for the effect to disappear and thus the light turns off, you take advantage of every second of its duration in order to look for other matchsticks in the room. In your eyes, the light of the matchstick looks huge because it's the first light you've seen in your entire life. But in reality, that little light is very small. In fact, it lasts a little and it illuminates just a few centimeters away from your face. It is too small to show you everywhere there is to see, but it will seem enough to you. In fact, you will believe to know the entire world now that you saw that little light. Therefore, you might feel already satisfied. Time passes and day after day, you use the matchstick you have taken to find others, but due to various commitments and losses of time, you light up only one matchstick per time, without thinking if you lit them all simultaneously, you would make a way bigger light. Sometimes you think about it until one day you turn one matchstick on, but while you are trying to light up another one, the previous one is already dying. Thereby, you end up thinking it's a useless waste of time and energy. But it takes time for you to understand that with one matchstick you could turn on all the others, and that together they would make a great light. So one day you reflect on it and wow, what a wonderful idea. You take one matchstick, you rub it, and with its flame you quickly ignite all the others simultaneously, making a great huge light shine. Their light is so big that you are fascinated. You remain there to stare at it, bewildered, without moving a muscle, without realizing the matchsticks turn off one after another and you go back into the dark. Despite this, you still feel immersed in the delightful sensation which that huge light gave you, to the point that you don't notice to be back in the darkness for several seconds, then for several minutes. You think you're still in the light because its glow captured you, but you don't realize to be returned into the dark for a while. Surely lighting all the matchsticks up was worth it because it showed you a big light that excited you. On the other hand, you weren't able to exploit the moment and you stayed still, staring at the light, waiting for the time to run out. Also, you have consumed all the matchsticks of your supply, thus you haven't got any other to use and you have to restart your quest in the dark. But naturally, the search won't really start from the beginning, because this time you know how much better what you are looking for and what you want to find, unlike the first time you found it and you didn't even know how to turn it on, far less why you should have turned it on. Many people stop here in the memory of the glow of the light lived in a moment, letting themselves be lulled by that beautiful memory without thinking they could look for matchsticks again, or time for meditation, and relieve that wonderful sensation anytime they wish. Others, however, despite the darkness and despite the thousands reasons why they are overwhelmed like everyone else, they have eyes that can see further and decide to go back searching for new matchsticks, light them up to find others, turn them on all together and create a great and strong light, but this time with the intent to exploit it and not to stand still staring at it. Some people then become tacticians. They realize the importance of that light and want to find a way to live in that vibration as long as possible, because living in the dark is not the only thing that matters for them anymore. They are no longer afraid of the light. That's why they no longer feel the need to hole up into the darkness. Thus, some people decide to strive to find more time during the day in any way in order to practice a bit more than they used to do previously and evolve a step forward every day. Here's how some people looking for new matchsticks become able to find whole stocks of candles. Candles, as we know, last much longer than the little flame of a matchstick could last. So, in this story, the candle represents the deepest meditation. We are no longer talking about meditations based only on relaxation, but one that goes beyond simple relaxation and allows you to evolve spiritually. Some people push themselves beyond because they want to know how much strong the light of many candles lit together is, that united can illuminate a much larger area than they were so used to when they lit multiple matchsticks at a time. The light of more turned on candles would be stronger, brighter, wider, especially more lasting than the matchstick they knew before. This is just the beginning of your spiritual path. You turned on a matchstick and you are still in the very early stages, in which you are still a bit frightened by that strong light that stunned your sight, used to living into total darkness, the unconsciousness. But in the meantime, with the sight of that light, it would seem to you to have reached your destination or to have discovered everything there was to discover, just because you had your first experience with a little flame of a matchstick. Yet, the path hasn't even begun, because this is only the first sample of knowledge you could taste. This is how the spiritual path of Dimensional Consciousness Academy is. At the beginning you can feel the shock of the collapsing routine, but the more you will taste the light of knowledge, the more you will wish to learn, so you will want to use this light to achieve greater goals. A spiritual path is not only the search for the light in order to stay still observing it until it's consumed. The spiritual path teaches you to use that light to create more of it, so that it does not have an end, but so that it expands instead. Through the Academy, you will have access to new knowledge that, like lights in the dark, will shock you and then conquer you, because you will realize you will no longer want to stop acquiring knowledge. After you have tasted knowledge, you will not want to stop in the dark of unconsciousness anymore. This is not only a reading path, this is Dimensional Consciousness Academy. To learn more about us, you can visit our website www.dimensionalconsciousnessacademy.com. See you soon.